Everyone has a story to tell. It's my mission to tell it. Unscripted, unedited, we are on the record. Hi everyone, I'm Sarina and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of On the Record, where we hear from incredible people and their inspiring stories. Well, today we have two amazing women in the studio. We have Vasti Amaro. I didn't roll the R, but that was pretty good, right? And Clemmie Perry joining us. But before we get into all the details, let's start with you, Clemmie. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I am Clemmie Perry, and I'm the founder and executive director of Women of Color Golf, and it is an organization that I founded about 8 years ago. I was a corporate executive at an aerospace and defense company, and I ended up losing my job.
Oh.
And when I lost my job, I'd always wanted to play golf, and I never really had time. And so now at that moment I had time, and that was about 8 years ago. And my story is a very unusual one of how I got into golf. I was always an athlete, and I love sports. I played basketball, and I was an NFL cheerleader. And when my brother found a set of golf clubs when I lost my job, I decided that, now I had the time and I would go ahead and learn to play. And so he took the set of golf clubs back to Tampa, and I didn't want to spend any money. The other brother bought me golf lessons, and I never looked back. So prior to 8 years ago, I had never touched a set of golf clubs.
I have so many questions for you after that introduction, but hold on.
Okay.
Let's hear from Vasti and give us some of your background.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for having us.
Absolutely. What an honor and privilege for me to have you guys on the record.
Talking about my favorite subject, golf. So I'm the director of international strategic partnerships for Women of Color Golf. And I've been with Clemmie since the very beginning on this 8-year journey. This is my second act, by the way. So prior to joining Women of Color Golf as an advisory board member and now into the international space for them, I have been in the transportation space, so logistics. I've been in the industry for about 30 years, and I've worked with public transit, mass transit, airport ground transportation. If you're moving people, I did it. And most recently, I started my own business as a consultant for transportation. And that took me pretty much all around the nation. And I've kind of shifted now to executive coaching and life coaching. It's a nice mix between coaching people in life, coaching people in business, and now coaching in golf. Really kind of all combination of life in one perspective when it comes to golf. But I will tell you, I started as an athlete. I came up the ranks in the athletic program. And when I was playing golf as an athlete, I was playing as an athlete, I was not introduced to the game of golf. I was basketball, volleyball, the traditional sports, track and field, and was able to get a basketball scholarship to go to the University of Paul Quinn. It wasn't until my mid-level management when my boss, an Anglo man, introduced me to the game of golf, and the rest is history.
There are, again, so many questions to ask you after these introductions, but can I just say to the audience, am I just like the luckiest woman in the world to host this amazing show and to meet such amazing people?
Thank you.
You're both life coaches, and I get it, and I get to talk to you. So, okay, Clemmie, let's, aerospace?
Yes.
Okay, you're both brilliant too. Aerospace. I want people to absorb that.
I know.
I think only how many people, less than 2% of people even go into aerospace.
I have a very unique background, aerospace and defense technology, and then I also worked in electrical distribution systems and smart grid technology. So my background was very technical. So I like the STEM area.
Yes. And then, and let's also talk about, you were an NFL cheerleader?
I was an NFL cheerleader for the Miami Dolphins and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for about 7 years.
Really? With the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well? Well, we need to invite you back on the lighter side of sports, which is a very fun, lighthearted show.
Yeah.
But both of you talked about how you got into the game of golf later. So with your organization, are you trying to encourage younger girls to start playing?
Well, Women of Color Golf was founded. Our mission is to encourage and promote diversity in the game of golf for minority women and girls. So we have a spectrum from 7 till, any age group. I always say if you are able to move your body and physically fit to play, you know, you can play golf up until your 80s or 90s. So for us, there is no age limit as long as you are physically able and capable to swing a club and have no challenges that can prevent you from swinging a club. You should do it. So for us, you know, our mission is to promote minority representation of women and girls in the game of golf. So we go from the elementary age all up until, you know, senior life ages.
So let me ask you, and Vasti asking you this question too. Yep. So you came from a basketball background, as you said, so always, you know, such an athletic background, and then you found golf at a later age.
Yeah, so for me, the inspiration is accessibility for all. When I was a young girl, it was the athletic program and the coaches that were my mentors. They were my first mentors. And if it wasn't for them, I would not have made it out of the economic status that I was raised in. So,
can you share a little bit more of that, though?
Sure, yeah. So my parents are first-generation immigrants. And my grandmothers, both single women, came to the United States for the American dream. And I am the living end result of that. And for us, it was very difficult for my parents at the young age to be able to make it in life. And so when we came along, the one aspect that helped me to be able to get an education was the athletic program. And it was those coaches that handed me off from middle school to high school, to college, that made it an opportunity for me to have a better life and have a career. And but back then, there was no introduction to golf. Someone like me, who looks like me, was not invited to the golf course. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're not members of a country club. And our education program in the Hillsborough County area didn't have golf programs. But I was thankful for the system in the athletic program that the basketball did afford me an opportunity for the scholarship to a university. Fast forward into my career in transportation, and that manager that said, hey, tomorrow I'm taking the boys out. You should come with us.
Ooh.
And I said, okay, where are we going? And he's like, just dress comfortably. We're going to be outdoors. And lo and behold, at least he knew I was left-handed. They had a left-handed golf set. They explained to me the basics. And me being an athlete, I swung the club, and the rest is history. Mm-hmm. And when we finished the day, he says, you did good today. Now go get some lessons, because this is where we entertain clients and where we open and close deals. I've been opening and closing deals on the golf course.
Oh my gosh.
So you have, if you want to be in the boardroom and you want to be relevant, mm-hmm. you need to understand the game of golf, and you should be on the golf course. And that's why currently I'm a member at the Carrollwood Country Club. Mm-hmm. And I still to this day in my own business start and close deals on the golf course.
And so you are helping level the playing field, because this is so interesting, because things like that do happen oftentimes in a social environment.
Yeah, and so when I met Vasti and she shared that story, so if I can take it back and reflect on what she said about how she didn't have the opportunity. So when you look at minority women and, you know, brown women like Vasti and myself, I'll share with you a little bit of the statistics. So what inspired me to get into the game were several people. And I always say that there is no women of color golf without a woman by the name of Dr. Renee Powell. And you may not be familiar with, and I know you all mentioned that you're going to be interviewing some of the LPGA on your show. And Dr. Renee Powell is the second African-American woman to ever play on the LPGA tour. And there is no women of color golf without her. Her father built the first black-owned and operated golf course in America because he was denied the right to play when he came back from serving in the Army out of another country.
And can you believe that, you know, he serves in the Army, and, you know, our colors for RHS TV, I want people to notice that, is red, white, and blue, because we so thank everybody who has given service to this country. There's no proper words of thanks, but he couldn't even get on the golf course. So
he had to build his own golf course, and it still exists today in Clearview, Ohio, and she still runs it. She's still the pro, and she's on our advisory board. And then there was Dr. Mike Cooper, who ran a grassroots organization here in Tampa. So those two people actually mentored me. And as I began to learn, Sarina, about, well, why wasn't people like Vasti and myself exposed? Well, number one, because we weren't allowed to go to the golf courses. That's number one. we were denied the right to do it. And then as I looked at the numbers, it showed that about 24 million people played golf, 4 million were minorities, and less than 1% was a woman of color.
Less than 1%?
Yeah.
And
you know,
so
honestly, I mean, that is so, and it's so sad that people wouldn't be even allowed on the course.
So I was standing on the fairway literally after I had lost my job, and I thought, well, you're an athlete, you know how to write training, and I connected with the pro, Mr. Jim Wright, and I convinced him to, you know, help me write a new way, a new methodology of teaching the game of golf, because I had the training background. And I said, well, if I can write training for aerospace and smart grid technology, I certainly could do a new approach for golf.
You think so?
And that's what, and that's
maybe a little bit.
And that's what we did. And we came up with a fast-paced, accelerated learning approach. And I'm proud to say that we recently piloted it with Aramco Oil out of Houston, Texas, and implemented it, and it was very successful. And so now we're hoping to continue to implement that program across other countries, and that's what Vasti is working on with some other international projects. But the impetus and the inspiration behind it was people like Dr. Renee Powell, Gladys Lee, Dr. Mike Cooper, and Jan Beljan, who actually took me under their wings, and they were my North Star and actually guided me when I saw those numbers, which were just glaring. And I realized I had to do something about it. So
and thank goodness you did.
Yeah, and I took my severance package when I got laid off and used it to build the organization.
So you took the money that you had because you believed so strongly
That's
in
how I
this.
started it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And we've trained over 1,500 minority women and girls in 8 years.
I want to talk about that in the second half of the show, for sure, because we're going to go to a break shortly. But before we go to the break, my question, in these years that you have been building your nonprofit, have we at least seen more women, especially minority women, playing golf?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And when we pick up that conversation, we hope to be able to brag about what we've been doing and what's coming, and you're going to see some numbers on the results of all of that.
That's fantastic. Okay, on that note, let's go to a break, and we will be right back after this.
Why is Precision Garage Door a name you can trust? Because of the Precision Promise.
Precision Garage Door, this is Sophia. How may I help you?
Your call is answered day or night by a live person ready to help.
That's our promise.
Our technicians will arrive on time in one of our recognizable, fully stocked vehicles.
That's our promise.
And there's never an extra charge for nights or weekends to repair your garage door. Quality service quickly from a name you can trust. That's the Precision Promise.
Precision Door Service, a name you can trust.
Label Swap is a retail store that you can bring in the items you don't want anymore. We will buy them for either a cash offer or store credit, and you can also shop the items as well. We carry anything from H&M, Lululemon, up to your luxury items like Gucci and Louis Vuitton. There's nothing really around like it here in the market. It is a fun, personalized experience.
Welcome back to On the Record. You know, during the commercial breaks, of course, we're continuing to talk about so many amazing things, all the amazing things you're doing with Women of Color Golf. For those that are joining us now, you actually, Clemmie, though, took your severance package.
I did.
And believe so strongly in this organization and started your nonprofit.
I had to, because it was about, you know, when you're a person of color, and particularly an African American, you know, you truly stand on the shoulders of the people that you came from, and you know the history of, you know, how we got to America, and the struggle is real. And there were people that, you know, had to do far worse than I did. So taking my severance package to start this, I knew I had to make a better way for the girls coming up behind me, because it was like Vasti said, it was about access and opportunity and having an equal playing ground, because the fairway has not always been fair to us.
And Vasti said that she was very excited to share some numbers of what you have accomplished since you started this organization.
Yeah, and so I like to go back to where it started for me. And so halfway through the amount of years that the nonprofit existed, we realized we need to get to the girls. And so the Girls on the Green Tee, which is the other arm of Women of Color Golf, began to focus on that younger age group. And we're proud to say that we have launched in 2 of the schools in Hillsborough County, named after Clemmie's family.
That's wonderful.
So James Ross Elementary, which has a representation of over 90% African-American students. We were able to launch the first one there and put about 8 girls through the program. And then the second school we launched at Reddick Elementary is named after her mother. And that is predominantly Latino students, about 90%. And we just recently finished 2 classes through there, and we're going to start again in the beginning of next year. And we are just excited because we're starting them as young as 9, 10 years old. And
so, yes, congratulations on that. Now, how did you open the door to get into the schools?
Well, we contacted, you know, the Hillsborough County School District, and we actually are partnered with LPGA Girls
That's
Golf.
wonderful.
And we made those schools LPGA Girls Golf sites. So we actually have a partnership with LPGA, and we work with Laura Diaz and the LPGA Girls Golf, and we had one of our instructors become a certified LPGA Girls Golf instructor. So again, looking at solutions. How are you going to do it? If nobody's going to help you, you got to find a way.
And you have certainly found that way. So for people who are watching and, you know, who may have daughters who want to play, how do they reach you? How do they get to you? What would be the best way?
They can get to us through several means. Our website, they can get through us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and social media under Women of Color Golf or Girls on the Green Tee.
So what are you looking for? Were you going to say something though?
No, I just wanted to, I was going to tee it up, if you will.
Yes, please, tee it up.
Just the whole life cycle of what Clemmie has done here in terms of the generations. So she started as an executive woman at the tail end of her career. We went all the way back to the beginning with the girls. Now we're proud to say that we're focusing on that transition to college. So we are partnering with all the HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, starting with, drum roll, back to her family, her grandmother's school at Edward Waters University in Jacksonville is where we're going to start a women's mentorship program. We are partnering with them. They just brought back their women's ladies golf team, which they hadn't had for years. They reached out to Miss Perry, and that's only one school. The other schools that we're partnering with on HBCUs, we're just shipping the clothes to their teams. And you want to talk a little bit about Ms. Renee Powell's team?
Yes, so the other HBCU recipient is a part of the Women in Golf Foundation, and that's going to be North Carolina A&T, and they will be receiving Xander Schauffele accessories, hat clips, purses.
We got to show the
compliments of our foundation partner.
Because I do want to talk about, you know, not to interrupt, but how did the foundation partners, and especially so many people are so familiar with those designers.
Yes.
You know, so how did they find you, or did you reach out to them? How did the collaboration happen?
Actually, they found us through the work that we were doing, and we are so grateful and so thankful to Xander and Maya Schauffele. You know, they've just been proponents of diversity and inclusion in golf, and they've supported us for a couple of years, and I know they support other organizations as well. So what we decided to do was support other grassroots minority organizations, and so this year we have a committee with Vasti, Craig Kirby, who runs Golf My Future, My Game, Lejean Gould with Women in Golf Foundation. So we put a committee together and thought we would distribute them to HBCU women's golf teams and other grassroots community organizations. So as Vasti mentioned, Edward Waters University, and then the winners of the Dr. Renee Powell Cup, North Carolina AT&T this year, and then some other smaller grassroots community organizations like, you know, Women of Color will also be recipient of some of the beautiful clothing that you see Vasti and I wearing today.
It's lovely.
So again, thank you to those 2 foundations that are supporting golf organizations and youth in the communities.
You know, and let's talk a little bit broader. Like, I know Women of Color Golf, of course, is amazing and supporting minorities, but I've also been a huge proponent of sports in general. I have a 15-year-old daughter. I think sports galvanizes a community. It teaches you leadership. It teaches you, you know, like there's so many things about sports. The example that you are setting for young women in general, talk about that and talk about why you think sports is important.
Well, I will tell you, you know, the studies show that there are several studies out there that prove, and I mean, I think, you know, and I know Vasti knows that any girl that gets involved in sports, it is proven that, you know, it is less risk of at-risk behavior. Their grades improve. Everything about being in sports, leadership. I mean, you cannot lose when you play sports when you're a girl, particularly because it teaches you about, you know, teamwork. Typically, you know, we don't get a lot of that in leadership, but just overall, you know, those numbers about, you know, leadership, behavior, you know, smoking, less drugs, all of that because they're involved in sports, and the data and the statistics prove that.
Absolutely, because you have to get up and perform, you know. Vasti, you talk about that.
Yeah, and for me, I just like to take the conversation to a personal experience. Again, when my parents had to work many hours and didn't have time to spend with me, it was those coaches, it was those athletic programs. They were picking me up, they were taking me home. Sometimes there were the meals that I needed because I was involved in a community program. And then fast forward to my studies, my coach in university was that arm keeping me safe. Believe it or not, my parents couldn't even take me to college. They put me on a Greyhound bus. And it was that coach that was waiting for me on the other side and helped me to anchor myself that I would be okay at the university. And then I got to my career, and it was those mentors that allowed me the space to invite me to the golf tournaments, and they very quickly found my personality was great with the customers. So they were like, oh, Vasti gets client relations. All of a sudden I have my own budget and I'm relevant in the corporate boardroom. Now I'm at the seat at the table. Now they want me in the conversation. And compared to my colleagues, I already knew some of the business strategies and decision making, and accelerated my career very quickly because I was with them on the green. I was with them in a social environment. And so that allowed me a succession plan that elevated beyond what I don't know would have been if I hadn't been on the golf course. But I just combine all of that to say the social experience, the leadership experience. I like to say the first leadership class I ever took was in the gym, in the coaching experience, in those athletic programs.
And you know, in so many athletic programs and so many scholarships, as we know, go untapped. Talk about that a little bit, Clemmie. I know, you know, with your organization, of course, with Women of Color of Golf, but just in general, there are so many athletic scholarships, especially for women.
Well, and, you know, definitely in the golf space, that is, particularly for a minority woman and young lady, that is where, that is the most untapped area right now in golf. So we definitely have to get them engaged. As a minority youth, and particularly a minority woman, you know, like Vasti said, I can take myself. We are typically, when you're athletic, we are typically geared towards basketball, volleyball, and track. You don't see us in swimming, and you don't see us in golf.
And certainly cheerleading.
Cheerleading.
And cheerleading.
Let's throw cheerleading out there as well.
So there is a big gap, but typically we're geared towards basketball and track. And so where the scholarships are definitely for minority girls is in golf. So, you know, that's why we are on a mission, and we have been, like I said, it has been unheard of, and that's why we literally have been getting calls now from all over the world.
Wow.
India, Ghana, and I just returned from speaking at Golf Canada and meeting with the CEO of Golf Canada. So we could not be more thrilled That's the best thing that ever happened to me, that I got laid off.
Well, listen, it is incredible that the two of you are here on the record. And as we wrap up the show, I mean, we talk about, this show is about positive change, impacting the community, the nation, and I mentioned inspiring stories. So what would your message be to people out there on helping others?
For me, I'm on a mission, in case you couldn't tell. And for me, it's leaving a legacy of equality, of generational wealth, of access and contribution. So it's paying it forward.
Wonderful. Clemmie?
Well, mine would definitely be, regardless of what anybody says, believe in yourself. And I know for me, a lot of people, you know, the elephant in the room would always say, well, you know, she's not a professional golfer. How did she do it? You know, because it is like an unrealistic story. She doesn't have a low handicap, but it wasn't about having a low handicap. It was about having a high desire.
And a dream.
A high passion, and a dream, and just wanting to be able to help somebody besides yourself. And that's what I would say.
It has been such an honor and pleasure to having you both on the record.
It was an honor to be here, and we look forward to seeing you on the links.
Oh, listen, okay, I'm there.
I'm going to put a club in your hand.
Well, I am there.
We're going to get you in the class.
Okay,
Yes.
I would love it. Okay, on the record, I'm saying yes, yes, and yes.
Right on.
Thank you, everybody. And if you want to be on the show, please reach out to us. You have a story that's personal, love, business, community. Email us at production@redhousestreaming.com. We love sharing your stories, and then please share them on our multiple social media sites. As you see, we're on everything, right? And we're also on Roku, and we have some major announcements coming in October.
All right.
But again, Clemmie, Vasti, I'm the golf club here again. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God, thank you for having us. That was so much fun.
Oh, that always makes me so happy. So happy. Thank you again, everybody. Stay safe and have a great week.